Okay, so imagine this. What if everything secure online suddenly just wasn't?
Yeah, like one massive cyber attack flips an off switch.
Exactly. Every encrypted message, bank details, government secrets, just wide open. Sounds like pure sci fi, right?
It really does. But it's actually a potential reality we're facing because of the advancement in quantum computers.
And that's where this new defense comes in, this quantum resistant algorithm thing.
That's right. Today on Technically You, we're taking a deep dive into quantum-resistant algorithms. You'll hear them called QR algorithms, and the whole field around them, or post-quantum cryptography, PQC.
Okay, PQC, got it. So the basic problem is our current security blanket, like RSA and ECC, that we use every day.
Right. They are protecting your online banking, your emails, and more.
Yeah, that protection might just completely fall apart against these future quantum computers.
That's the core concern. Those methods rely on math problems that, well, quantum computers are expected to be really, really good at solving.
So QR algorithms are kind of the next generation of locks designed specifically to resist these quantum skeleton keys.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, they're being built from the ground up using different mathematical principles, ones that we believe even quantum computers will struggle with.
Unlike the current ones that something like Shor's algorithm could potentially break.
Exactly. Shor's algorithm is the big one people talk about for breaking RSA and ecclesiastical. PQC aims to make systems secure against that and other potential quantum attacks.
And PQC is the whole effort, the whole research area focused on future proofing our data.
Precisely. It's the umbrella term for developing, testing, standardizing everything needed to get us ready for that post-quantum world. So today we really want to unpack why this is so urgent and what it actually means for, well, everyone online.
Okay, so break it down for us. What makes quantum computers so different? Why are they this potential earthquake for security?
Well, it really comes down to how they handle information. Your laptop, your phone, they use bits, right?
Right.
Always either a 0 or 1, right? But quantum computers use qubits, and qubits are, well, they're weird. They can be 0 or 1 or kind of both at the same time. That's superposition.
Both at once. Okay, that's already bending my brain a bit.
Ah, yeah, it gets weirder. Qubits can also be linked together in this spooky way called entanglement. So what happens to one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are.
Okay, entanglement. So what does superposition and entanglement let them do?
Well, it lets them explore a vast number of possibilities simultaneously. Think about trying every key on a keychain at once instead of one by one. That's a rough analogy.
Right, and that speed up is what threatens our current encryption because the math problems are like finding.
The right key, pretty much. RSA, ECC, DSA, they rely on things like factoring huge numbers or solving discrete logarithms. It is incredibly hard for normal computers.
So it would take longer than the age of the universe. At least that is what I've heard sometimes.
Exactly. But Shor's algorithm running on a powerful enough quantum computer could theoretically do that factoring, solving those problems much, much faster.
How much faster are we talking? Like, give us a sense of scale.
Well, take RSA 2048. That's a common standard today. For a classical computer, forget about it. But a sufficiently large, stable quantum computer, some estimates suggest it could potentially break it in maybe hours or even minutes.
Hours? Minutes? Okay. That is an earthquake. So, who's building the shelters? What are the main types of QR algorithms?
That's where the big NIST project comes in, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They've been running a global competition basically to find and standardize the best PQC algorithms.
Okay, so NIST is like the referee picking the winners. What families of algorithms are in the running?
The front runner really seems to be lattice-based cryptography. It's seen as maybe the most promising. Overall,
Lattice-based, what does that involve?
it's based on math problems involving high-dimensional grids or lattices. Think finding the shortest path or the closest point, shortest vector problem, SVP, in a really, really complex, multi-dimensional structure, like hundreds or thousands of dimensions.
Whoa, so it's hard to find your way around, even for a quantum computer.
That's the idea. The sheer complexity and dimensionality seem to make it tough. The big names NIST has already standardized are crystals, Kyber for key exchange or encapsulation.
Key exchange, like setting up a secure connection.
Exactly. And crystals dilithium for digital signatures, which is like proving a message or document is authentic.
Okay, Kyber into lithium, lattice-based. Got it. What's another major type?
Then there's hash-based cryptography. This one's interesting because its security is built on something we already trust a lot: cryptographic hash functions.
Hash functions like digital fingerprints. Unique outputs for any input.
Precisely. They're designed to be one-way streets, easy to compute the hash, incredibly hard to go backward from the hash to the original input. And quantum computers don't seem to offer a huge speed up for breaking that one-way property.
So it leverages existing strong primitives. Any examples?
Yeah, XMSS, or the extended Merkle signature scheme, is a key one. Especially good for signatures. It builds these large tree structures out of hashes. Very robust, though maybe less flexible than lattices for some things.
Okay, lattices, hashes. What else is in the mix?
Another important family is code-based cryptography. This uses principles from error-correcting codes.
Error correcting codes like the stuff used in data transmission or storage to fix errors?
Exactly, that kind of thing. The idea is to encode data with so much structured noise that only someone with the secret key, the error-correcting code details, can decode it. Classic McAleese is the, well, classic.
Classic McAleese. What's the catch or the trade-off?
The main thing with classic McAleese is often key size. The keys can be quite large compared to RSA or even some other PQC candidates. Yeah, but it's been around a long time and is considered very resistant.
Bigger keys, but strong resistance. Okay. Are there others?
Yeah, there are also multivariate quadratic equations. This involves solving systems of equations with multiple variables and squared terms. Think really complex algebra problems.
Sounds hard.
It is. Rainbow is a signature scheme based on this, but it's worth noting that this category has had some setbacks. Specific schemes, including variants of Rainbow, have shown weaknesses recently under analysis.
Ah, okay. So active research means some ideas don't pan out perfectly. Any other main types?
The last main category was isogeny-based cryptography. This used mathematical objects called elliptic curves and special maps between them called isogenies. It's quite exciting. Psych was the big name here.
Was?
Yeah, was. Unfortunately, Psych was quite dramatically broken by researchers not too long ago. A major breakthrough, but not the good kind for Psych.
Wow. So that really highlights that this is still an evolving field, doesn't it? Finding weaknesses is part of the process.
Absolutely. It underscores why the rigorous testing and analysis, like the NIST process, is so critical. We need algorithms that can stand up to intense scrutiny.
Okay, so we have these different approaches: lattices, hashes, codes, some more promising or robust than others. Now, are they actually being used? Is this moving out of the lab?
Definitely. It's not just theory anymore. The big news, as I mentioned, was NIST formally picking crystals, Kyber, and crystals dilithium as the first standards. That's a huge green light. This is the end of part 1 of this podcast. Please stick around for part 2.
Welcome back to part 2 of our podcast on QR algorithms. We closed part 1 with NIST greenlighting two standards. So, my next question is, does the approved standardization clears the path for companies to actually start implementing these QR algorithms?
Exactly, and we're seeing that happen. Big players like Google with Chrome and Cloudflare have been experimenting with what they call hybrid approaches.
Hybrid, you mean using both old and new encryption together?
Yeah, precisely. They might use a traditional method like ECC to establish a key, but also use Kyber alongside it. So even if ECC gets broken later by a quantum computer, the Kyber part still provides security. It's a way to test the waters and gain experience without going all in immediately. And
Smart. Like having a safety net during the transition. Who else is moving on this?
well, sectors with really long-term data security needs are definitely paying attention. Think military, government, finance, healthcare. They're starting serious assessments, looking at their systems, figuring out where the risks are, and planning migrations.
Because their data needs to stay secret for decades.
Exactly. And even consumer-facing tech is looking at it. Messaging apps like Signal, known for strong encryption, have publicly discussed exploring PQC integration. Yeah, so it's starting to trickle down. And before you say it, yes, recently the military had a Signal leak about a planned action, but that was because of bad practices and not the technology.
Okay, so we know what they are, why we need them, and that they're starting to be deployed. Let's get back to the basics a bit. How do they actually work? What's the core principle that makes them quantum resistant?
The key idea across all these different families is that they rely on mathematical problems believed to be hard even for quantum computers. They sidestep the specific vulnerabilities, like factoring that Shor's algorithm exploits in RSA and ECC.
So they're built on different mathematical fortresses, essentially.
That's a great analogy. Each type uses a different kind of fortress.
And, can you give us the simplified fortresses description for each main type? Again, like lattice-based.
Okay, simplified lattice-based is like hiding a secret message at a very specific, hard-to-find point in an incredibly complex, high-dimensional grid. Finding that exact point without the map, the secret key, is thought to be a massive search problem, even quantumly.
Like finding one specific atom in the universe. Okay, what about hash-based?
Hash-based is more like using a giant, intricate verification system built from one-way functions to sign something. You reveal just enough information about a unique path through the system to prove you have the master key, but not enough for someone to forge another path. Security relies on the hash function being unbreakable.
Right, revealing a specific route without giving away the whole map. And code-based?
Code-based is like burying your message inside what looks like random noise or static, but doing it using a very specific structure based on error-correcting codes. Only someone with a secret descrambler, the key related to the code, can filter out the noise and recover the original message. To everyone else, it just looks random.
So different strategies, but the common goal is creating a puzzle that stays incredibly hard computationally. Infeasible, even when quantum computers arrive.
Exactly that, making the cost of breaking it in time and resources prohibitively high. Even with quantum power, it all sounds
Very advanced, maybe even a bit far off. Why should, say, a regular business be worried about this now? Quantum computers aren't on every desk yet.
this is maybe the most critical point for businesses today. It's something called harvest now, decrypt later.
Harvest now, decrypt later. That sounds ominous.
It is. Think about sophisticated attackers, maybe state-sponsored groups. They are almost certainly collecting and storing huge amounts of encrypted data right now. Data that's protected by current encryption like RSA or ECC.
Okay, why, if they can't break it yet?
Because they're playing the long game. They hoard this encrypted data and they wait. They wait until they do have access to a powerful enough quantum computer, maybe years from now. And then they decrypt all that stored information.
Whoa. So sensitive data encrypted today could be exposed years down the line.
Precisely. Any data that needs to remain confidential for 5, 10, 20 years or more is potentially vulnerable to this. Well, this ends part 2 of our podcast on quantum-resistant algorithms. Stick around for part 3, where we tie up the loose ends and close out this podcast.
Welcome back to part 3 of our podcast on quantum-resistant algorithms. We're going to start off with which industries really need to be on high alert for harvest now, decrypt later attack.
Well, any industry with long-term sensitive data, really, but especially financial services. Think transaction histories, account data, government and defense, obviously with classified information. Healthcare, patient records need to stay private for a very long time.
Right? Medical histories, genetic data.
Exactly. Also, telecoms, who handle so much critical infrastructure and data flow, and cloud service providers, who are custodians of vast amounts of other people's data. If that data gets harvested, the future consequences could be huge.
So the message is waiting isn't really an option if your data has long-term value, but actually switching over, it can't be easy, right? What are the hurdles?
No, it's definitely not flicking a switch. There are significant challenges to adoption.
Like what? What are the main roadblocks organizations are facing or will face?
One big area is performance. Some of the QR algorithms, well, they might have larger key sizes than we're used to. That means more data to store, more data to transmit over networks.
Okay. Bigger keys, potentially more bandwidth needed.
Right, and some might be a bit slower for certain operations like encrypting or signing. It might not be noticeable for everything, but for high-performance systems, it's a factor to consider and test. It's a trade-off, often, between the security level and the performance characteristics.
Makes sense. Performance is always a concern. What else?
Compatibility is a huge one. Think about all the existing hardware, software, protocols, VPNs, web servers, security tokens. They're all built expecting RSA or ECC. Getting everything updated to speak PQC smoothly is a massive integration task.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a headache. Ripping out and replacing the cryptographic foundations of everything.
Pretty much. And related to that is the complexity of hybrid deployments we talked about earlier. Running both old and new crypto side by side during the transition adds complexity to managing keys, policies, and just general security operations.
2 systems to manage instead of 1.
Exactly. And finally, there's the need for education. You know, security teams, developers, IT staff, they need to understand these new algorithms, how they work, how to implement them correctly, what the potential pitfalls are. There's a significant learning curve involved.
So performance, compatibility, complexity, and education. Quite a list. Looking ahead then, what's the general feeling? What's next on the horizon for PQC?
Well, the exact timing is still debated. You know, when will a cryptographically relevant quantum computer actually arrive? But the direction is undeniable. The quantum era is coming, and the cybersecurity implications are real. We have to prepare.
So what trends should we expect to see accelerating in the next few years?
I think we'll definitely see more standardization, and adoption of those hybrid schemes just makes the transition smoother. We'll also see Kyber and dilithium, the first NIST standards, getting baked into more and more products. Operating systems, browsers, libraries, cloud services. It will become more common.
So moving from experimental to default.
NIST will also keep working. They have more algorithms under consideration for standardization, maybe covering different use cases or offering different trade-offs. So expect more NIST announcements beyond 2025.
Continuing refinement of the standards.
Right. Yeah, and I think we'll see a growing ecosystem around PQC startups offering specialized solutions, major cloud providers offering quantum-safe APIs and toolkits to make it easier for developers to build PQC into their applications.
Making it more accessible for everyone to implement.
Exactly. The overall message is really that starting the planning and preparation process now gives organizations a real advantage. Don't wait until the threat is knocking at the door.
This has been fascinating, a real look under the hood at a huge shift happening in cybersecurity. So just to wrap up, quantum computing is coming. It poses a fundamental threat to our current encryption, but these quantum-resistant algorithms offer a path forward.
That's the essence of it, and it's not just some niche academic thing anymore. If you're involved in tech and security, or frankly, if you just rely on the internet, understanding the basics of PQC is becoming increasingly important. It's foundational for future digital trust.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, whether you're deep in the tech weeds or just interested in where our digital world is heading post, quantum cryptography is definitely something to keep watching for sure.
And it leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder, doesn't it? Considering data can stay sensitive for decades, but we don't know exactly when these powerful quantum computers will arrive. How do you strategize for that? How do organizations and even individuals prepare proactively for a threat whose deadline is still, well, a bit fuzzy? That's the challenge we're all facing.
Quantum computing is rewriting the rules of cybersecurity, but quantum-resistant algorithms are giving us a fighting chance.
If you're a tech professional, security engineer, or just a curious mind, now is the time to pay attention to PQC and quantum-safe encryption.
Thanks for tuning in to Technically You. Don't forget to subscribe for more future-ready tech talk, and remember, the future isn't just near, it's already knocking on your firewall. And as always, stay curious.